Steve, who do you have in the series?
I think this is going to be a fun one. I'm sure many people are writing Cleveland off. I would just note this is a team that works hard, is prideful. They earn their spot here. They're probably going to have something to prove, and they're going to feel like they're the underdog. The game one fascinates me as we head into watching it. Obviously, when you see this, it'll be tonight, but it feels like a wide array. Like it could be Cleveland is just behind prep-wise and rest-wise, and now all of a sudden Boston runs away with game one. Or Cleveland is sneaking into a back and forth, and now you got to deal with them. I'm going to go with Boston in 6. And it's mainly because I don't know the availability of Jarrett Allen. And so if there's no Jarrett Allen, how many lineups do you truly have? How many lineups do you have that can deal with Boston, even as they shorten their bench? Can you hold up on both ends? It could, I'm surprised you didn't say it could just be a math battle once you get to a certain point as far as three-pointers go. I think Cleveland's going to fight. I'm going to take Boston 6.
Okay, makes sense. And I love that you framed it the way that you did. That gives me the opportunity to empty out one of the notes that I was about to leave in the notepad here. As I had some general Boston stuff up to see how they fared against Cleveland versus their overall regular season numbers, all coming from Cleveland Glass. A 118.2 offensive rating against Cleveland. That's 5 points worse than their regular season mark. An offensive rating in the half court of 100, which is 6.5 points worse than the regular season mark. But as we talk about the absence of Jarrett Allen, how good of a player he is, specifically how good of a rebounder he is, in the regular season matchups with these two, Boston with a 32.7 offensive rebound rate in those 3 matchups, which would be the equivalent of the second best team in the league. And during the regular season, they ranked 11th. In addition to the 3-point math, it could just be possession battle for Boston if they're able to generate some extra opportunities with Jarrett Allen being out of there. And that's also where it becomes important and where I'm curious to see how Boston looks to move Evan Mobley around. Because if they are able to avoid him in his rim protection, that's one thing in and of itself. But even if they get to the rim where they, draw help, kick out for a 3, now Mobley's trying to crash down from the corner to clear out a possession. Boston can get some extra chances there. And they have guards, Jrue Holiday, Derek White, Peyton Pritchard when he's in. They are not afraid to kind of fly in and get extra opportunities there. So that could be another feather in the cap for Boston. I'm probably closer to Boston in 5 than Boston in 6, just because of the health element for Cleveland. I think the Allen impact is a little bit heavy, weighs a little bit heavier on Cleveland than the Kristaps absence, just because, they still have Al Horford at the end of the day. Cleveland really had to work against Orlando. That's just a lot of wear and tear. And Boston is just a better team. And so I think it's going to be a hard-fought 5. We may see a blowout in this series, but I do think everything's going to be relatively close. But I would probably lean Boston in 5 right now. Any closing thoughts, questions before we move to Thunder Mavericks?
No, other than a very dunker spot to go half an hour on Boston Cleveland with Luka versus Shea right here.
Yeah, that's what we do. I hear no one's talking about Boston, so we had to make sure that we gave Boston their due in the segment. Anyway, we have Thunder Mavericks. The Thunder won the regular season matchup 3-1, though. Matchup on December the 2nd. This is before both teams made trades. Got a matchup on February the 10th, in which Dallas just blew OKC out the water. We had no Luka on the March 14th matchup. And on the April 14th matchup, I think Dallas just didn't have anyone playing in terms of their rain rotation. And we got 10 minutes of Shea? It was very much we'll play y'all in the first quarter, and then we're just emptying the bench at this point. So not a ton to glean from the regular season matchups in particular. Worth noting, Maxi Kleber with his right shoulder injury, he's out indefinitely. And also a quick hat tip to Jason Kidd, who signed a multi-year extension. I think a first-round win over the Clippers probably helps in that regard. But we do have Shea versus Luka. And beyond all the narrative things, which I'm sure there's going to be plenty of room for other people to do that. I don't really want to dig too deep into that. These are 2 of the 6 best players in basketball. Both are really fun drivers. Both just put incredible strain on defenses. And so much of the series is going to revolve around how is OKC planning to match up with Dallas, and what exactly does Dallas want to do against Shai? So I think naturally the series does start there. And more so, I'm curious to see how OKC wants to deal with Luka. We know Luka can throw any scheme that you toss at him over the top rope. I do wonder how much size is going to play into this one. Because while Lu Dort is a tremendous defender and he is feisty on ball and he is one of the best screen navigators in the sport, he has a cool sense of when to fight over and try to stay attached and when to slide under and meet you on the other side and still do so with a level of physicality that you don't feel comfortable trying to drive against him anyway. It's still Luka versus like a 6'3" or 6'4" dude. And more so than the pick and rolls, I wonder what the clear side ISOs or what the post-ups are going to look like with Luka. OKC has been a very aggressive double team throughout the year. Dallas has worked to put teams in rotation. They have, Luka has his own natural gravity. Kyrie Irving, who had himself one heck of a first round series against the Clippers. Some of the shooting percentage numbers won't show it, but his impact was just evident throughout this series. Those two draw extra bodies in and of itself. With those post-ups with Luka, how does OKC want to handle it? Do they want to double? And if Dallas counters with, we'll just keep Kyrie one pass away. How does OKC plan to deal with that consistently? Because that feels like a very important battleground. Like the pick and roll stuff, I think is going to be, they'll just mix up looks. We will see drop with Chet Holmgren. We might see some switches. We might see some switching doubles, depending on who Luka's calling up for the screener. The inside the arc stuff with Luka is going to be interesting. Which kind of brings like the health into play. How's the knee feeling? How deep is he driving? Because one of the things that popped for me as the series went on, and I think I noted to you during one of our watch parties, I think for Game 5 or Game 6, I said the Clippers should be a little bit worried that Luka is starting to drive deeper on these. He's starting to get deeper into the paint now. I feel like the comfort is getting there. Or he's starting to feel good. I'm just really curious to see how OKC deals with that portion of it.
I think it's fair. I think it's very fair to start there. And I'll make sure I address the Luka point because there's an element to the playoffs where a team may showcase something that another team could take advantage of. I think it's pretty clear for if you're OKC, we need to make it tough on Luka. We need to make it tough on Kyrie. They got to make us pay. But at the same time, OKC showcasing that first round series, if you don't necessarily have the best answer for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jalen Williams, we know what we can get to outside of just our pure system of driving, kick, cutting, clearing space, opening things up. So when it comes to Luka, I'm just intrigued to see which way OKC goes on defense. Mm-hmm. Do they go with activity? You've mentioned the double teams. You've talked about it all year. Do they want to start that way? I think if Luka's in a post-up against Lu Dort, OKC will stay at home. If Luka's able to start to get some of these switches and these matchups and he has it going, they may see the doubles. We get right back into Dallas. Can you make the defense pay for what they're doing? I think the one that makes me think is Kyrie.